Talking about buy, sell and insurance. So James, Marshall, you were talking to me about this the other day, so would you care to share some of the details around that?
Yeah, I think on this one, it might be something that's done post-transaction, but for some transactions, it might need to be done earlier during the transaction. Sometimes with buy-sell, it's a requirement of the acquirer to have an agreement in place and also the insurance in order to get the financing on the purchase. So it might be something that's done a bit earlier. And if it is, it's another one of those projects that need to get managed in getting the deal to completion. And in this particular case, when you're going through this process, you're bringing in a third party with potentially uncontrollable timeframes around an insurer. So the earlier you can get started, the better in terms of getting it to completion. But generally where it starts is an education process with the business partners around, well, what does buy, sell insurance mean? And that's usually in the context of other business insurances, but buy-sell is the one that we're focusing on for this part of the conversation. And essentially what it does is it provides the funding mechanism to complement the buy-sell agreement, so to complement the legal agreement, tying into what those trigger conditions are. And it gives the certainty to those that if you're a business partner that you're impacted and you've got the event, it gives you the certainty and your family the certainty of what happens in one of those events. And on the other side, if you're a business partner in partnership with someone else, it gives yourself the certainty to know that if one of these trigger events, and if you've got the insurance to back it, if one of those occurred, you've got the certainty to go, well, we'll get the outcome we need and potentially not be scrambling to try and figure out how to finance an exiting business partner, or be faced with a family member of the impacted person coming in to try and run the business, which isn't going to be a great outcome. In terms of process to go through it, most people will find, if they don't already know, most people will find that they have some kind of health issue. So generally the process starts off with, from an individual sense, going through a pre-assessment to pick up any health issues that you might be aware of, and then working with everyone business partner-wise to work out, well, what's the actual amount that you need to consider insurance for. That needs approach on what you might need for is generally not too complex, because it generally ties into a valuation or a transaction amount which is occurring. So the valuation piece and the insurable amount piece isn't too complicated, but going through the application process can be. Once everything's together, you're going to go through the underwriting process, and that can be quite onerous for business people, particularly if you're talking about trying to insure for millions of dollars. Quite a lot of hurdles to go through. You might have to do things like exercise ECGs, medical reporting. It can be a lengthy process as well, with information needed back from doctors. So like I said, the earlier you can get started, the better. When you go through that process, working with the lawyer who's doing the buy-sell is important to make sure the trigger events line up perfectly with the actual insurance that gets put in place. As an example, on one that we've done recently on a total and permanent disability perspective, because of the insured amount, for everyone insured, there'd be amount potentially paid 3 months after not being able to work. But for an amount above a certain threshold, it wasn't going to be till 9 months. So making sure that not only is the agreement set up to handle that type of outcome, but also to make sure all the business partners understand that on day one, to know if you are someone that's impacted, there's staggered payments, and the hurdle for the second payment is different to the first. So making sure that the policy specific details are reflected in agreements, but also everyone understands what they look like as well. And the other component to going through the process is making sure you get the ownership structure right on the actual ownership of the insurance, which is where someone like Craig Barry comes into play to make sure that advice is provided at the time.